how to make cat barrier wire covers for your garden beds. Even if you don't have cats, your neighbors probably do. Especially in late winter and early spring, the loose, relatively unfrozen soil in your well-composted garden beds is attractive to cats. Unfortunately, this is when many plants are germinating or small and so get destroyed very quickly. The problem reached new levels for me this year, and after some serious destruction of spring planting, I brainstormed what I would need to do to protect my garden beds from the cats. They had to be able to get water and sunlight, it had to be inexpensive and not too complicated, but also modular and easy for me to move. After consultation with the resident engineer, I decided all I needed was a roll of 4-foot wide welded wire fencing, plus some flexible wire that is used for tying fences together by way of supplies. For tools, I needed something to cut the wire with, and needle nose pliers that had a wire cutting function worked for that, something like bolt cutters or tin snips for cutting the fencing, weights, and I used cement bricks for holding the fence down while cutting, gloves, and a tape measure. Using these supplies, each raised bed needed 3 sections of wire to cover it. I snipped the fencing in 7-foot pieces, being careful of the cut ends because these are razor sharp and the rolled fencing can be springy and unpredictable. I cut midway in the spaces between the fencing so that I left spikes on each side that would stick into the ground a bit. Placing each 7-foot piece over the ends of the raised beds was easy. The middle section was a little harder. I found it worked best to place the end in front of me first and then sort of throw the other curling end over. I found it helped to flatten the sides of the fence along the side of the raised bed, but leave the very bottom edge slightly curled in so that it stuck in and there were no sharp edges hanging out. I ended up with about 1-inch gaps between the sections, but I don't think the cats will be trying to sneak in between that. It's all too unstable for them to want to walk on. Bending the fencing over the edge of the raised bed wasn't too hard. I had to experiment with various gripping angles, but also had to vary how I did it so that I didn't strain my wrists. I tried to bend along a consistent line of the wire, even if it was not exactly along the edge of the raised bed. This made bending overall easier and it yielded sturdier results. The next bend was to pull the side of the wire cover up stair-step-like so that it could be formed into a more box shape. After getting the basic shape of the bend going in either of these bends, I moved the wire slightly off the edge so that I could press the bend more, making it hold more tightly to the edge. The last major bend in the main cover was to gently square the top, which worked for me to do about 4 spaces up from the last upward bend. Sometimes a bit of mild pressure was helpful to fine-tune the top of the cover to be more flat. You've probably noticed that the video segments are alternating between 2 different sections that I worked on. Each raised bed ended up having 2 ends that needed extra covering, or else the cats would just walk right in under that. These end sections were made by cutting 12-inch bits of fencing. And again, I cut them mid-space so I was left with wire prongs that I could use to attach to the other fencing. You may notice that over the course of doing this, I switched from a more blunt nose plier to a needle nose plier. The needle nose pliers worked much easier. Sometimes I did all the bending of those prongs with pliers, but sometimes I was able to do it with a little finger push first. And here I show that you can easily remove and replace one of these sections. four 12-foot long, 4-foot wide raised beds that I have managed to finish these wire covers for. 2 of them had things planted in them that were greatly destroyed by cats before I got the wire covers on. But I can see that some spinach and some beets survived, even if I have no sign of carrots. But over here, I actually got this wire cover on in time for these broccoli to sprout just fine. Now I just need to protect them from ants.